Body of a woman, white hills, white thighs, you look like a world lying in surrender. My rough peasant's body digs into you and makes the sun leap from the depth of the earth. So last week when I was kind of depressed, I posted this video where I read a bunch of Shakespeare sonnets, and I was going to delete that video initially, but I got this nice comment from somebody who was asking for poetry recommendations, and I realized that I like a lot of poetry and I like to read it aloud. So that's what we're going to do again today. But I've selected 5 of my favorite poems, or at least my 5 favorite poetry collections, and I varied them sort of across different time periods to sort of give you a range. Poetry is quite a subjective thing, because I really think everybody has their own taste and themes that they are drawn to. I think with me, I really do prefer themes of love and longing and anything that can evoke a really deep, visceral sense of yearning. I've got the 5 poetry collections that I'll recommend, and then I'll read one poem from each of those collections, from each of those poets. So I've just got my laptop here for some of them. So the first poetry collection that I want to recommend is Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Sonnets from the Portuguese. I really like sonnets. I think they have a predictable structure and sort of an inbuilt rhythm to them. They're quite easy to read, and I just love seeing the different ways sonnets are written. And I think this collection in particular, it's very romantic. It's a whole collection of sonnets that Elizabeth Barrett Browning wrote for and about her husband. And so the sonnet I'll read you is perhaps the most famous sonnet. This is Sonnet from the Portuguese, number 43. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life, and, if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. The next poetry collection I would recommend is any kind of collected works of W.B. Yeats. I mean, I had to study him in A-levels, and he's one of those really canonical poets, I suppose. But I think when you really get down to it and read his work very closely, he was just a soft boy who was obsessed with like this woman and just wanted his love to be returned. And I think that really speaks to the kind of thing I love to read. So this is Wishes for the Cloths of Heaven, which is another very famous poem by Yeats. Had I the heavens' embroidered cloths and wrought with gold and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet, but I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly because you tread on my dreams. So the next poetry collection that I want to recommend is Pablo Neruda's 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. This is another very seminal work. It's a collection that is said to have propelled the Spanish poet really into the limelight at the age of 19, which makes me feel very unaccomplished. I think the poems themselves really speak to this youthful kind of passion and desire and longing as well, and I think they're beautifully written. So I think the poem that I'm going to read you from this collection is the very first one, because I think it really sets the tone of the entire collection. It's called Body of a Woman. Body of a woman, white hills, white thighs, you look like a world lying in surrender. My rough peasant's body digs into you and makes the sun leap from the depth of the earth. I was alone like a tunnel. The birds fled from me, and night swamped me with its crushing invasion. To survive myself, I forged you like a weapon, like an arrow in my bow, a stone in my sling. But the hour of vengeance falls, and I love you. Body of skin, of moss, of eager and firm milk, oh the goblets of the breast, oh the eyes of absence, oh the pink roses of the pubis, oh your voice, slow and sad. Body of my woman, I will persist in your grace. My thirst, my boundless desire, my shifting road, dark riverbeds where the eternal thirst flows, and weariness follows, and the infinite ache. So, as you can see, there is a bit of a theme emerging, and I think it's really interesting sometimes to think about how across time and across cultures, poets really deal with the same essential themes, but it's just the language they use, the vocabulary they choose. It's all, it all depends on what's socially acceptable, the social norms of that particular time period. But those basic human needs and desires are essentially the same. The next poetry collection that I'm going to recommend, that I have returned to so many times, I actually wrote my university thesis on this very collection, and it's called Call Me Ishmael Tonight, a book of Ghazals by Agha Shahid Ali. And the Ghazal form is actually an Indo-Persian form originally, and it's very prevalent in modern day South Asia, which is where I'm from, by the way. But Agha Shahid Ali is credited as being the poet who recreated that form or solidified it in the English language, and it's one of the most breathtaking collections that I have ever read. Perhaps it particularly speaks to me because of the cultural significance that I feel it has for me. So I'm going to read you the most famous ghazal from that collection. It's called Tonight. Where are you now? Who lies beneath your spell tonight? Whom else from rapture's road will you expel tonight? Those fabrics of cashmere to make me beautiful, trinket to gem, me to adorn, how tell tonight? I beg for haven. Prisons let open your gates, a refugee from belief seeks a cell tonight. God's vintage loneliness has turned to vinegar. All the archangels, their frozen wings fell tonight. Lord, cried out the idols, don't let us be broken. Only we can convert the infidel tonight. Mughal ceilings, let your mirrored convexities multiply me at once under your spell tonight. He's freed some fire from ice in pity for heaven. He's left open for God the doors of hell tonight. In the heart's veined temple, all statues have been smashed. No priest in saffrons left to toll its knell tonight. God, limit these punishments. There's still judgment day. I'm a mere sinner. I'm no infidel tonight. Executioners near the woman at the window. Damn you, Elijah. I'll bless Jezebel tonight. The hunt is over and I hear the call to prayer. Fade into that of the wounded gazelle tonight. My rivals for your love, you've invited them all? This is mere insult, this is no farewell tonight, and I, Shahid, only am escaped to tell thee, God sobs in my arms, call me Ishmael tonight. So the final poetry collection that I'm going to show you today is a bit of a wild card, but I've chosen it because it holds a lot of personal significance to me. When I was about 15 or 16, and I didn't really know a lot about poetry back then, and this was a very accessible collection that I just happened to pick one day at a bookstore, and I became obsessed. This collection is not necessarily the best written or the most literary. I think it has this emotional resonance and this emotional truth to it that really spoke to me as a 16-year-old, and that is Leonard Cohen's Book of Longing. I have this really beautiful edition to show you. I think some of the poems in here are just such a raw portrayal of loneliness, of man's loneliness in isolation. There are phases where he is going through some heartbreak or failing to connect, And just the pain of that, I think, is so visceral in this book. To a young nun, this undemanding love that our staggered births have purchased for us, you in your generation, I in mine. I am not the one you are looking for. You are not the one I've stopped looking for. How sweetly time disposes of us as we go arm in arm over the bridge of details. Your turn to chop, my turn to cook. Your turn to die for love, my turn to resurrect. You know, I remember when Bob Dylan was given the Nobel Prize for Literature, and it was sort of a bit of a controversy, but I think it did make an important statement about what constitutes as poetry and the idea that, you know, poetry does not need to be inaccessible in order to be good. I really love discussing literature with people, so if there is anyone out there who is watching this and you have any thoughts to share, I would really appreciate it, because I would really love just to talk to somebody about some poetry.